The pastor didn't recognize her. No one did. She sat alone, second pew left side. Black coat, white gloves, back straight like the hymnals had taught her. There was no music playing, no casket, no service. Only silence, the kind that fills empty churches on a Tuesday afternoon. She held a folded piece of paper in her lap, and on it, one name, not hers. She didn't cry, didn't look around, didn't seem surprised that the room was empty. But when the doors opened again, the wind came first, then the faint sound of boots, slow, deliberate, familiar. A tall man with silver hair stepped inside, and behind him a dog, quiet, focused, a shepherd, a shadow. They didn't speak, didn't ask, just walked to the third pew and sat beside her. No one else came, no choir, no family, no headline, but that day, in a forgotten church, a war widow wasn't forgotten anymore. Thank you for being here. Sometimes the smallest moments carry the greatest meaning. Today's story is one of those, quiet, powerful, and worth remembering. If it touches your heart, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like more stories like this, you're warmly invited to subscribe and tap the bell so you won't miss the next one. Now, let's take a closer look at what really happened. Her body remembered the rhythm before her mind did. Tuesday, 9:42 a.m. second pew left side. Ruth Harwell had made that walk every week for 31 years. The cane was new. The knees were slower, but the steps, they never forgot. Each one etched into the stone walkway like a soft hymn only she could hear. Inside the church, the sanctuary was cool and dim, not dark, but shaded. The sun filtered through stained glass like it was apologizing for not showing up more often. Ruth didn't mind. She preferred the quiet light. She didn't pray much anymore, didn't close her eyes. She just sat and waited for memory to arrive. Sometimes it did, like a whisper. Other times, it came with the weight of a soldier's boots on wood floors. She could still hear his laugh sometimes, low, warm, almost teasing. Eugene had never been a loud man, but he didn't need to be. He had a way of looking at her, even in silence. That made her feel seen. She remembered the day he shipped out. They'd had fried catfish and cornbread the night before. She depacked him a tin of cookies, tucked with a note that read, "Bring back your stubborn self in one piece." He'd kissed her forehead that morning. Didn't say goodbye, just smiled that quiet Eugene smile. The bus had kicked up dust, and then he was gone. When they buried him years later, they didn't bring a flag. No honor guard, no taps, just a brown casket, and a preacher who mispronounced his middle name. Ruth had gripped the edge of the pew so hard her knuckles turned bone white. But she didn't cry, not until she got home, and realized she still had the cookies in the pantry, still sealed, still waiting. The town had always called Eugene the watchman. He was the night security guard at the Ashmont train depot. A job that didn't require much talking. That suited him just fine. But what they never knew, what Ruth never told, was that Eugene had once saved a teenager from being arrested outside a diner on the Georgia border. A black teenager in uniform, alone, wrong skin, wrong town, wrong time. Eugene had stepped in without a badge, just his calm voice. "He's with me." And the sheriff, after a long pause and a longer stare, "Let the boy go." That boy had never forgotten, and his name was Elijah Boone. Scout arrived first. He stepped into the sanctuary ahead of Elijah. A tall German shepherd, black and tan, posture perfect. He didn't bark, didn't sniff. He simply stopped at the edge of the pew and waited, eyes fixed on Ruth, not as a guard, not as a threat, as a witness. Elijah entered next, boots soft on the hardwood. His coat was wet at the collar from morning mist, and he looked older than she remembered, but not smaller. He moved like someone who carried a memory that still had sharp edges. He saw her and nodded once. Ruth turned. "Elijah Boone," she said softly. He looked surprised. "You remember me?" She gave a faint smile. "I remember what my husband didn't say that night. He came home quiet, but I could tell something had changed." Pause. "You were part of that." They sat in silence for a while. Scout lay at Ruth's feet like he belonged there. She reached down. He didn't move. She placed a gentle hand on his head, warm, solid, alive. "He would have liked this one," she said. Elijah looked at her. "Eugene." She nodded. "He always believed dogs knew things before people did. Said their silence was braver than ours." Elijah's voice came soft. "Maybe that's why they come back with us and the rest don't." She looked up at the stained glass. "I come here because no one else does. Not to remember him, I do that every morning, but to give him a seat. Because for years he never took one. Not in this town, not at any meeting, not at any gathering." Her eyes moistened. "And even after he died, no one made space." Elijah didn't speak, just reached into his coat and pulled out a small, folded patch Army Standard issue. She stared at it and whispered, "He never told me he gave that boy a way out." Elijah replied, "That's how you know it mattered." The letter came folded in thirds, no return address on the envelope, just a seal gold embossed. Ashmont Historical Committee. Ruth opened it slowly, not from fear, from familiarity. She'd received versions of this before. One in 1984, denying Eugene's VA burial benefit because documentation was insufficient. Another in 1992, rejecting his name from the town's veteran newsletter because combat status not confirmed. Now it was happening again. "Dear Mrs. Harwell, we regret to inform you that after review of your husband's records, he does not meet the criteria for inclusion in the 2025 Veterans Dedication Plaque. There is no formal record of commendation, and his service, though honorable, lacks sufficient detail for public honorific designation. Thank you for understanding." Ruth didn't flinch, but she folded the letter with such precision, like it might bleed if she didn't. She placed it beside a tin of Eugene's old medals, the ones he'd never mounted, and she whispered, "Of course, you don't remember him. You never really saw him." That Sunday morning the church was fuller than usual. Memorial weekend, men in suits, kids fidgeting in pews, flags clipped to lapels. Pastor Andrew Keller stood at the pulpit, clearing his throat. "Today we honor those who served." Elijah sat in the back, hands folded. Scout sat at his feet, not sleeping, watching. Ruth sat alone, second pew left side, but today she held no program. Just the rejection letter, folded neatly inside her prayer book. After service, Keller approached. He was young, respectful, but unsure. "Mrs. Harwell, I heard from the committee." She didn't look at him. "I know. I wanted to say how sorry I am." Ruth finally turned. "Sorry doesn't rewrite names on plaques." He hesitated, then looked to Elijah. "I've been told you knew Eugene." Elijah nodded. "I owed him my life. He never cashed in." They met again on Tuesday. Keller, Ruth, Elijah, Scout, same sanctuary, same pew. Keller brought a binder. Inside, regulations, procedures, requirements for town memorial inclusion. "I want to help," he began. "But the committee needs citations, commendations, something on paper." Ruth said nothing. Elijah did. "You want paper? Fine, here's some." He reached into his coat, pulled out a military field memo, yellowed, original, dated 1974. It referenced a civilian altercation prevented by an off-duty veteran intervention. No names, just a location, a date, a note in the margin, situation diffused due to calm presence, prevented escalation. Elijah tapped it. That was him. It didn't save a base, didn't make headlines, just saved me. Keller read it slowly, looked at Scout. He really stepped in just like that. Elijah nodded. No backup, no applause. Just stepped forward like he'd done it 100 times before. Scout stood up. No sound, no command. He walked to the front pew, stopped, and sat perfectly aligned with the place Eugene used to sit. Keller watched. "What's he doing?" Elijah answered softly, bearing witness. Later that week, the town posted the final plaque design online. Eugene's name wasn't there. No appeal process, no comment field, just a note, finalized. Ruth didn't say a word when she saw it. She just stood up from her kitchen table, walked to the back bedroom, and opened a cedar chest. Inside, Eugene's folded uniform, a pocket knife, a pressed photo of the two of them on their wedding day. She laid the rejection letter inside the chest on top and closed it. At dawn the next day, Elijah was already at the church steps. He held something in his hands, wrapped in cloth. Scout lay beside him. Ruth arrived quietly. He stood, unwrapped the cloth. Inside, a shadow box, not large, but inside, protected behind glass, was a patch, 25th Infantry, a handwritten note behind it, carried not by force but by choice. Ruth touched the glass. Her voice broke for the first time. He didn't need medals. He just wanted to be remembered like a man. Elijah nodded. Then let's do that. Not with plaques, but with presents. The dedication was held on a Sunday, the kind of May morning that pretends not to be hot yet. Flags lined the sidewalks. The brass plaque gleamed beneath a silk veil. Chairs were neatly arranged in rows of 10. Everything looked polished, but Ruth had seen polish before. It didn't fool her anymore. She sat near the back, not from shame, from truth, because the front rows were reserved for honorees' families. And Eugene, by official standard, wasn't one. She wore gray, not black, not red, white, and blue, just gray, the color you wear when you don't expect to be seen. Elijah stood a few paces behind her, Scout beside him. The dog was unusually still, not anxious, not alert, but waiting, like he could feel the storm behind the silence. The mayor spoke first, then the committee chair. Each name read aloud carried a pause, a clap, a photo displayed on the small LED screen by the podium. When the last name was spoken, the chair lifted the veil. Brass shimmered, applause followed, and then, quiet, the kind of quiet that says we're done now. Ruth stood, hands trembling, voice steady. You forgot one. The microphone wasn't on her, but her voice didn't need it, not today. Heads turned. A murmur swept through the chairs. The announcer hesitated. I'm sorry. You forgot one, she repeated. Elijah Eugene Harwell, veteran, husband, watchman, quiet protector of this town when no one else would speak. The chair fumbled. The committee. Elijah Boone is alive today because of him. The crowd looked back at the tall man in the trench coat. Elijah stepped forward, hat in hand. Scout followed. I was 19, fresh out of basic, wrong place, wrong skin, wrong time. Pause. He stood between me and a sheriff with a temper. No badge, no backup, just Eugene, and the sheriff backed down. A hush, tight and sudden. Elijah turned to the plaque. You can carve all the names you want, but if you leave out the ones who kept you honest in the dark, you're not honoring service, you're honoring select memory. He placed the shadow box at the base of the stage, turned, and walked back to Ruth. Scout did not follow. Scout stayed. The German shepherd stepped forward, stopped in front of the plaque, and sat, head up, ears forward, watching the names. Then, slowly, he lay down, front legs extended. Head rested just below the brass. A silent guard, the audience froze. No one moved. No one clapped. Even the mayor looked confused. But something about the way the dog stayed, unmoving, unbothered, made people lower their cameras. Something sacred had entered, and no one had invited it, but it wasn't leaving. A veteran in the front row removed his cap, then another, and another, within a minute. 13 hats in hand. No one said a word, not even the committee, because they couldn't. The truth was sitting right in front of them, tail curled, chest still. Eyes steady. Ruth placed her hand on Elijah's arm. Don't let them erase him again. Elijah looked at the crowd, at the brass, at Scout, then said quietly, they didn't erase him, they just didn't deserve him. That night the mayor sent a private message. No press, no announcement, just 4 words typed without signature. We got it wrong. Ruth didn't respond. She didn't need to, because Scout was still there, waiting quietly on the church steps the next morning. Tuesday, 10:00 a.m. Ruth came to the church like she always had, but this time, Scout was already there. He was lying in the second pew. Same spot, same posture. His head rested where Eugene's name should have been. She walked in slow, not from pain, from purpose. She wore white gloves again, folded her coat over her arm, and sat beside the dog without needing permission. She opened her handbag, pulled out a small piece of paper, folded 4 ways, not a program, not a letter, just a note, handwritten. To the ones they forgot. I didn't. She placed it gently on the pew, not in the center. Just beside Scout's paw. He didn't move, but his ear twitched, as if he'd understood. Elijah entered quietly. No coat today, just his boots and a dark gray shirt tucked in like it used to be. He looked at the note, then at Ruth. She didn't speak, just nodded once. So he walked forward and sat behind her. From his pocket he pulled a small brass rectangle. It wasn't shiny, wasn't engraved, just a key tag, military issue, stamped with the number. HRWLL 1429. He placed it on the windowsill behind the pew, right where the light hit at 10:12 every morning. Then he leaned back. They sat like that for a while, no music, no voices, no cameras. Just 2 people and a dog, and a pew no longer empty. The pastor never interrupted again. The doors were always unlocked on Tuesdays. Sometimes fresh flowers appeared without names. Sometimes someone left a medal. But no one tried to speak for Eugene anymore, because the silence had said enough. A few weeks later, someone noticed something new outside the church, just beneath the stained glass window etched into the sandstone. For the ones who carried others, even when no one asked them to. No plaque, no credit, just that line, and underneath it the faint outline of a paw print pressed in by Scout himself. Not every story ends with a cheer. Some end with a nod, a memory placed gently back where it belongs. Ruth never asked for a monument. She only asked that silence be shared. Elijah didn't fight to change the plaque. He just made sure one pew was never empty again. And Scout never needed to speak, because sometimes the ones who never say a word carry the names the longest. In a world that moves too fast to notice the quiet ones, maybe it's time we slowed down and listened. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more quiet moments that matter. Scout and Elijah will be waiting, right there, second pew left side.